Hey there, everybody. Thanks for listening. This is the Fit Mess Podcast. My name is Jeremy. We talk about stuff like depression, anxiety, and what other mental health challenges we're dealing with on any given day or week or month, wherever you are. Today, my guest is Topaz Adizes, and he has an interesting idea. He's asking, can curiosity heal? A question he's been pursuing for a decade. Having 1,200 conversations with different people to try to get to understand what it is that helps build better connection, better intimacy, better relationships. And he's the founder of The Skin Deep. It's hugely popular on TikTok and YouTube. Millions of followers. He's a big deal. He knows a thing or two about how better to get connected to those that are close to you. A powerful conversation, and he says a number of things that I'm excited to share with you, because I'm always blown away that after doing this show and doing the amount of work and things I've done for years now, that somebody can come on this show and say something to me and make me think about something in a way I've never thought of it before. In particular, in this case, he's talking about how he sees movies or film as a form of meditation. And I found that really powerful. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're also going to get into a number of questions that he believes are critical to building better relationships and better connection with folks, and really speak to something that we talk about a lot on this show, the idea of curiosity, that really just being curious about things is the key to deeper, more meaningful relationships. He's going to break down how approaching conversations with genuine curiosity can create space for vulnerability and connection. And he'll speak to that thing that we do when we're trying to win an argument or prove ourselves right about something, how we get stuck on finding the right answer rather than trying to find better questions to get to a better answer. This is something that keeps coming up for me more and more in my life, and it's something I need to pay more attention to. It's the idea of reframing the questions we're asking. Instead of asking yourself things like, why does everything have to be so hard? Or why do I suck at this? Or why is this thing such a challenge in my life? Thinking about those things in a different way, where it's like, what can I learn from this experience? Who can I ask for help to get through this? What have I not tried? It just, when you change the way you ask yourself these questions about whatever you're going through, it just tends to open doors to more and better answers to lead to what we're all trying to have here, which is, I think, a more peaceful, more content existence. I know one area where I get stuck on this is the idea of success, trying to figure out what it is to be a success, what it means to from the social perspective, to be a success. I compare myself to others all the time, even though I know I shouldn't. I know it's stupid, and I know it doesn't serve me. But you're going to hear from Topaz his own story of moving from an ego-driven success to finding joy and fulfillment in creative work. And he shares how he changed his whole approach from seeking external validation to enjoying the process itself. This is something I keep telling myself to do, but apparently not asking myself the right questions to actually do it, because I still very much rely on hearing from others. Good job. Way to go. People like you. It's okay. You don't suck at things. You're a nice person. People want to be around you. This is tough, right? I've spent my entire life seeking external validation and trying to turn that lens inward and look at myself and just be proud of the work that I do for the sake of doing it, to be happy that I am who I am, because it's the only opportunity I've got, right? Like I'm not going to be anybody else. So I need to learn to enjoy this experience, because it ain't changing. But enough about me. Let's bring in Topaz. We started the conversation. Look, this guy has talked to 1,200 different people over 10 years about this stuff that we're talking about. And so I wanted to find out what the hell led to that. What a crazy journey to go on. What an incredible experience. He's learned so much, and you're going to learn so much from this conversation. So I want to turn it over now to, I asked Topaz how he got started on all this. And so here now is my conversation with Topaz Adizes.
Yeah, how did I get into this? Good question. I think life brought me into this. And what does even that mean? Look, my parents got divorced when I was 3 or 4. And from early on, there was a search for intimacy, a search for connection. I saw my parents, who were then, you're a 3, 4-year-old, they're gods. And there was war at home. Just didn't understand why these two people that loved me so much didn't like each other so much. What was not working? And I think that created a pain that turned into a hunger, a search. for intimacy and connection. And that led me through, I studied philosophy, blah, blah, blah. I took a camera. I started trying to travel and talk to people. And I realized a camera was a bridge. It was a bridge into people's worlds. And it kind of opened the door so I could learn about people's lives. And I was really, I think, looking for intimacy, connection, just seeing where was it between people, not necessarily just for myself, but just amongst people. And then became a filmmaker and did that for 15, 20 years, and turned my direction of really just focusing on utilizing my skills as a filmmaker around creating a digital platform that explored human connection. This is 2014. I just saw like how we were all shifting so much due to technology, but no one was really asking the question, how is the emotional experience of being human shifting in lieu of all these technologies, right? And that's kind of the road I've been on for the last 11, 12 years through my experience design studio, The Skin Deep. And the thing that's kind of our flagship experience or product, if you will, is called The And. That's what won the Emmy. And that's this digital format where we've been posting pretty much a conversation every week for the last more or less 10 years. And now we're in our 11th year. Every week, a conversation between two people. And they're facing each other. We give them questions, and we're showing you either a bi-panel or triptych. So basically, you're seeing both faces at the same time. And that gives me and my team a really unique vantage point because we've been watching humans be humans. We've been watching people in conversation. And I've learned a lot from witnessing that space, how to hold it, how to construct it, how to just learning from humans being humans. It's just amazing. So it's a long-winded, quick answer about how I got here.
That's okay. It's interesting. It seems that curiosity was the fuel that led you on this journey, but curiosity also turns out to be one of the answers you found in this exploration.
I mean, what I found was that the power of questions, and that's a cliche, but it's one that we often overlook. Even in the morning you wake up and you say, oh shit, I have to do that today. You don't realize you're answering a question. And the question is, what shitty thing do I have to do today? That shitty thing. Okay, well then change the question. Amongst the day's busy schedule of all the shitty things I have to do today, what's the lesson I'm going to learn? What's the one moment that's going to be divine? What's the one thing that I'm going to really cherish, even though I have to do all the shitty things? Then your answer will be different. You say, you know what? I'm going to find this moment. And what I've seen is just, we're not practiced at asking questions. We are trained to give answers, and all the power lies in the questions. You have kids, and you get bedtime.
Yeah.
Say, hey, kids, you want to go to sleep? What's the answer? No. You're asking, you want to go to sleep? No. That's. If you ask instead, look, kids, you want to sleep on the bed or the couch? The option is not sleeping. That's not an option because in your question, you've shaped the two potential answers. So what questions are you asking yourself? Your answers shape the question. Your answers are shaped by the question, and yet all our focus is on the answer. It's the wrong place to look. 80%, 90% of the energy should be in the question. Just to finish, if you are banging your head right now against something, where should we live? What should I do with my job? Should I break up? Should I tell this person that? And you can't figure it out, and you're kind of banging your head against the wall, stop thinking about the answer. Change the question. You don't have a good question. Create a better question. Then the answer becomes obvious. That's what I've learned from this last 11 years.
I'm so glad we're talking about this because in my life, this has been something that keeps coming up for me in more explicit ways than I ever noticed before. One was talking to my therapist just a couple of weeks ago and dealing, because I deal with depression, less so than I used to because of the things I've done to manage it. But
Great.
I was in kind of a down point, and I was sort of wrestling with, he was talking about possibly experimenting with medication again, which I did not like when I did before. I had bad results. And I was hung up on this question of, is the world broken or am I broken? Like, which is like, why do I need to take a pill because I don't fit into a broken world? Like, I don't think I'm the broken one. I think the world is the broken one and I can't find my place in it. And I posed that question to someone and they said, it's the wrong question. Yeah, you're kind of broken. The world's kind of broken. But the better question is like, how am I going to find my place here? Like, how am I going to manage?
How is this breaking shaping me into the beautiful thing I can become?
Right.
Change the question. And I think I've been in places of my own dark depression, and it's hard to get out. It's like climbing your way out. And what I find helpful is it's because I'm repeating, it's banging my head against a answer that is not giving me agency. It's not giving me a sense of, it's not giving me answers that are providing the ladder out of the pit. So change the question such that you get answers that provide you the ladder out of the pit. You're in a relationship, you break up or you get ghosted, whatnot. You ask yourself, why they dump me? Why they ghosting me? Well, your mind is a faithful dog and it's built to protect you. And it's going to go find all the answers it needs from any question you ask. Why did she dump me? Why did he dump me? Why, why they ghosting me? Okay, because this. Whatever answers that dog, that faithful dog that you have, that mind of yours that's built to protect you, will find you all the answers. And how many of those answers are really going to empower you? So change the question. What am I going to learn from this relationship that I'll carry to the next? Did I play full out in this relationship? And in what ways can I play even more in the next one? What did I learn from this relationship that made me better in relationships that I'll carry to the next or that I'll let go of in the next? Then you get answers that are more empowering. They give you agency. You can move forward. And we don't focus enough on the questions. And
how do we start to see it differently? How do we learn that skill to ask better questions? Because it is so easy to default to the, how do I stop getting smacked in the face every time I do the same thing over and over again?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what's like in my book is I guess that's where I feel that this experience that I've lived through, my team and I for the last 11 years is seeing that distinction of the power of the questions in a very real way, because I bring people into a room together and you give them a really unique question. What's the pain in me you wish you could heal and why? When was the first moment you knew that I knew I loved you? A lot of our questions are scripted and generic, and therefore we have the same answers to. You change the questions, you make them deeper, people have to take a pause. Jeremy, what's your favorite lie you love telling yourself?
Wow.
Now you're going to pause. Now it's like, wait, what's the truth you hate telling yourself? Pause. Okay, let me look there. Why? Because we don't look there that often. But the question directs you in a space that you don't look at often, and therefore there's a discovery of a new answer, of a new opportunity. And so we're often banging our head against the same questions that have been given to us by society, by our family, by our friend, by whatever, that just everyone, and therefore it's not such interesting questions. Therefore, you don't get powerful, interesting answers. And so just by chance, by doing this project for 11 years, that's what I've learned, because I've asked thousands of questions and I see how humans react to those questions. And I started understanding, oh, wait, I can shape the answers. I can shape the opportunity. I can shape the bridge upon which people can either choose to walk in across or not by positing a question in a certain way.
Is there how do I ask this? Especially for someone like you. You've studied this very closely. You've watched this over and over again in the way people interact with each other. Is there a danger in sort of overthinking the question that takes you away from the vulnerability of the experience you're trying to better understand?
So that's where what I'm hearing from that is that's where curiosity comes in. And why is curiosity important? Because when you want, in the context of having a conversation that explores who you are, who the people in your life are, you cannot come to it with an agenda. You have to come to it with an intention. And that's what's important about creating the space. Basically, at the end of the day, how do you do this? How do you create the space of these conversations? Create the space, and you ask well-constructed questions. We just talked about the power of questions, how to well-construct them. We could talk about that. And now you're asking, well, how do you, not overthink or not? Now this is about creating the space. And what's important about creating the space is that you articulate your intention. And the best intention is curiosity. Even if you're pissed, someone did something that hurts you, stop. Because your first reaction is like, I want to have a conversation and I want you to apologize to me. So what is that? That's your agenda. And the agenda is the end. You're going into the conversation knowing where you want to end up. And how often does it happen to you? Like, how often does a partner come and they say something and wait a sec, well, okay, where do they want to get to with this? You're not even thinking about the question. You're thinking about why they asking the question. Where do they want to get to? Your partner comes home and says, hey, why do you love me? You're going, wait. You're not wondering why you love them. You're wondering, where the hell is this coming from? What do they want to hear from me? What just happened? Where do they want to get to? They have an agenda. And therefore, your mind comes out to protect you. And now two minds are talking instead of hearts, because the heart is built to connect. So how do you invite the heart out? Intention. Hey, this is where I'm starting from. I'm wondering, something happened in our life. Why did this happen? I'm curious. Where did this come from? I don't know where we're going to get to. Therefore, it's an invitation for your heart to step out, my heart to find out what's there. So when you say overthink, it's like overthinking, because then you're thinking about a question because you want to get to a certain place. You can only start from where you are. That's how you can come with an intention to create a space of exploration, right? And like the thing about why do you love me? Like we sell these card games, right? We got 15 editions of different card games and different things. If your partner comes home and says, hey, Jeremy, I got a box of questions. It's a game called And. Choose a question, and you randomly choose a question that says, why do you love me? Now you're both not wondering why the other person asked it. You know why, because you're playing a random game, and one of the questions is, why do you love me? And now the space has been created for one of you to give, and arguably more importantly, for one of you to receive.
Yeah.
Because if your partner comes, yeah.
So I'm curious, in that scenario where the person comes home with the why do you love me, or hey, we need to talk, or whatever thing sets you up on the defensive, it's usually coming from some place of anger, some place of deep emotion.
Confusion, something.
Yeah. So is it simply a matter of being intentional about that conversation and waiting until you've sort of calmed down, have the right questions in mind? How do you separate from the I'm pissed and I want the apology and I want things different now,
right,
to get to that place where you are really connecting at the heart and not at the head?
Yeah. So pause. Okay. Well, how do you pause? What's that mean? Pause, breathe, slow down. Good advice. When things get crazier and crazier, whether internally because your emotions are going or around you, the faster it gets inside you or around you, the slower you should move. You should inverse effect, like slow down. So breathing helps, right? Just take a breath. Feel that breath run through you. Like, okay, cool. You're feeling emotion, anger, disappointment, shame. You got triggered. The more you can slow down and breathe, that helps you with the pause. Feel your way into it and search for the curiosity. Why am I feeling so angry? What has just triggered me? Where's that coming from? Why did they just do that? Like, I know we're in a relationship. This is my best friend. This is my brother. This is my my wife. This is my partner, husband. This is my partner at work. Aren't we on the same page? And yet this hurtful thing happened. This disappointment happened. Why? Like, because the first instinct is upset and you want to kind of take a thing of why. And that can bring you to a point of ask the question from the why. Ask the point of the curiosity. Feel that curiosity, because here's the thing. If you go to the person, and look, I'm talking about conversations that explore your relationship. Sometimes you need to know the fact. Sometimes you need to know what this is. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about those deep conversations that make your relationships more fulfilling, more resilient, more profound. Because you're exploring what you don't often explore, not the obvious. You're going deeper. And so from there, you got to come from the place of why, like creating the space for them to step into versus trying to get off of the wall that you've pinned them against because you're accusing them. It's much easier to shake a hand that's open than with a finger pointing at you. So the curiosity is a natural way to tap into that. So you need to pause and go, wait, okay, why am I feeling that way? Now, really, if this is really where I'm in a relationship with this person, why would they do that? So, and then sincerely asking that question, coming from the place of curiosity, that already changes the environment such that they can step in with their heart versus protecting themselves with their brain. And then you have to say, like, how do you construct that question? So here's how here's a takeaway tool. Okay, if you want to know, here's takeaway tool. Take home right here. These two words to any question, and you're already deactivating the potential bomb that could be there. Okay, you add the words, do you think, or do you feel? Why do you feel our relationship failed? Why do you think we just had a conflict? Okay, that makes it your subjective truth. First is if I say, hey, Jeremy, why did our relationship fail? See, that question puts you in the place of objective arbiter of truth. Why did our relationship fail? Why do you think this didn't work out? Oh, sorry. Why didn't this work out? So you're going to answer is like, that's the truth. And then I'm like, no, that's not what happened. But if I just say, why do you think? Why do you feel? I can't argue with that. I can't argue with you. That's your opinion. That's your experience.
It also opens, I think, the conversation for you to see their perspective.
Exactly.
And mirror it against yours and go, that's where the disconnect is.
So just when you ask a question, just add the words, do you think or do you feel? And that already makes it subjective. And that's less an argument about what the objective truth is and more about what your experience is. And then your space is already an invitation for me to hear your space and for you to me to hear your point of view and for you to step into the space of sharing your point of view.
Now, I want to ask you about the curiosity of the feeling, because like, why am I angry about this? Like, what about being curious about the actual feeling itself? Because often under anger is fear. Like I'm afraid of a possible outcome. It's coming out as fear.
I'm not a therapist. I don't know where shame comes up to, guilt, fear. Look, I don't know what the answer is there. I know it's a good question and a good perspective on it. Is that all those emotions are wonderful fodder, or better said, fertilizer for growth. Where there's a lot, it's like, oh, cool. There's a lot to explore there. There's a lot of energy there. Now the question is, what do I do with that energy? Do I let it rip me down, or do I take the time to utilize it so I can utilize it in a constructive manner to build me up into the next version of myself? Sometimes, how does that show up? In a very external example, sometimes I have to go have a conversation with someone I don't want to do it. But I know that my hesitancy or my consternation of having that conversation is inversely affected by the payoff that's going to come out of that conversation. So whenever I feel that hesitation or that like, oh, I know that like, oh, actually I'm going to go do that. Why? Because I'm going to come out the other side with a surprise, a great deal of growth, a learning, a better understanding. I'm going to step through that door. Because the more that I feel resistant to it, there's a greater lesson behind that door.
Quote our friend Ryan Holiday, the obstacle is the way. Am I right?
My God. So in that sense, when you feel a deep an emotion, that's why the pause is so important and the breath is to drop into it. Why? Because there's so much stuff to explore there. Like, explore it.
Yeah.
Because that's the path to more growth.
What has all of this work that you've done really studying human connection, how has it changed you? Like, who were you when you started on this journey and who are you now?
Yeah, good question. I don't know if it's the work or not, but one thing that has changed is I do the same work, but I'm not driven by the same motivation. I used to be driven by a lack of self-esteem and a desire to prove myself to my father and the standards he set, which was basically genius or nothing. And it was, for me, I was ego-driven because I needed the claps. And, the first 2 times I went to Sundance, I had 3 short films at Sundance. The first 2 times I went, they were back-to-back years. During the screening, the only question I was wondering is, do they think I'm a genius? Because that was what I was like. That was a question that I had been set by my father. That was a standard. Do they think I'm a genius? Do they think I'm a genius? My God, that's exhausting. That's an exhausting question. It's like puts my judgment of my own value on other people, and it's a high standard. Years later, I went back with the 3rd short film. It was The End, Marcel and Rock. In the end, man, I enjoy that festival at Sundance so much more because I was not asking myself, am I a genius? I was asking myself, are they enjoying this as much as I am?
That's awesome.
I was enjoying it. I was like, are they? And if they're not, fine. But because this is amazing. And that's a much better question to ask. It's much more joyful, right?
It's so hard when you are a creator of some kind to walk that line between what are they going to like, and how much am I doing this for the joy and the satisfaction of creation? Because we can all do, there's a million podcasts and most of them suck, right? But it's people out there living their best lives, talking about stuff they're super interested in, and their mom and their brother listen to it, and they're great. And there's people out there that are doing the algorithm. They're playing it right. They're asking the right questions so that the audience will love it. And they're right. But they're doing pretty well for themselves. Like, that's a tough line to walk as a creator.
You could be doing the exact same thing externally. You could be making the exact same podcast. You could be making exactly the same job. You could be doing exactly the same films or whatever, writing, whatever it is. You're doing the exact same thing. But where you're coming from, the intention and the criteria you set for yourself can be totally different. And that could be the difference between you being exhausted and unhappy or fulfilled and ecstatic. And when I went from being, do they think I'm a genius, to are they enjoying this as much as I am? You could see like I'm still doing the same thing. I'm still making films, but where I'm coming from and how I'm evaluating what's happening is set against a different question. And that second question sets me up for more happiness and joy, even if they're like, they don't enjoy it as much as I, because I'm having a great time. Okay. So that's been a big shift for me. It's definitely what question am I asking? I mean, even the shift from starting this project, before that, I was a filmmaker. For 15, 20 years, I was making films. So the question I was asking myself is, how do I get my next movie made? I saw basically cinema as modern day popular culture meditation. Because you get people into a theater, sit down, they're focused, they're not moving, their breathing pattern is consistent, they're watching a screen for 90 minutes. Meditate.
I never thought of it that way. That's so interesting.
Right? Modern day pop. And I was like, that's super cool. But then I asked myself a question. I had a short film that went to Cannes, and I put it up on Vimeo by accident without a password, and it got picked up as short of the week, and in a week had like 500,000 views. So that was like, wait, what game am I playing? I asked myself, what game am I playing? Am I playing the game of this popular culture meditation, popular culture meditation by making cinema? Or am I playing the game of injecting ideas into the mainstream? That's a really interesting game to play. Well, if I'm playing a game of injecting ideas in the mainstream, why don't I go digital? Because look how many people watch my film in 1 week. How much time, money, and energy would have that taken me in the other model of making a film in a theater? Wait, this is a much more interesting game to play. Let me go play that game. So right now, if you're listening, what game are you playing? I don't care what job you have. How are you naming what you are doing?
I would argue that many of them are naming it as, this is the thing I have to do to pay the rent, to feed my kids, to put gas in the tank. And it's a miserable existence. It's the thing I have to, where we started. What shitty thing do I have to do today to make today a success?
Like, that's just a horrible question, right? What shitty thing do you have to do today? And you're even if you have the best day on the planet, you're like Saint-Tropez on a vacation. I don't know what. If you're asking your brain, what shitty thing do you have to do today? Your brain is a faithful dog. It will find you that shitty thing. And that's
it's the look for a red car, right? You just bought a red car. You never saw a red car on the road. Now all of a sudden that's the only thing you see is all the red cars because your brain is looking for it. Yeah,
exactly. And I just think we're not trained on how to ask quality questions. That's what I've learned, and yeah.
Well, and this focuses a lot on relationships. How have your relationships changed because of this different approach to asking questions?
When I started this, I was single, and I'm now married with 2 children. I definitely think, look, witnessing all these pairs, and it's not just romantic, it's grandparents with their grandchildren, it's best friends, it's siblings, right? Watch over 1,200 conversations, pairs in conversation, all kinds of relationships. And a lot of them come back year after year after year. So not only do we have like a breadth of relationships, but we have depth too, because you can track people over time. As they become parents, as they change, and you watch these conversations and you can't stop but seeing yourself in them because you're wondering, ooh, do I listen to my partner like that person listens to their partner? Do I mansplain to my wife like that person's mansplaining to their partner? Am I really listening? Am I really taking this other person in like that person is? Am I totally oblivious to my partner like that person is? You won, and then that gives a reflection. Other people's life experiences, other people's moments of vulnerability and courage, or courage in vulnerability, of sharing a bit of themselves in front of us that you can all see on YouTube, but I'm seeing like in person in the studio. It's the same thing when you watch it in the conversation. Like you see a reflection of yourself and what you have and have not and could be or could not be. And that really gives you an opportunity to change and grow in your own relationships. Because
have you seen people struggle to be vulnerable? I mean, I've been in a similar situation where I shot a pilot for an HBO show. It was like a group therapy situation, and somehow magically the cameras disappeared when we were there. Right, like we were in the moment, open, raw, emotional. Is it hard to get people to? Because I mean, it's hard for people to open up without cameras, but put a camera on their face and all of a sudden shields up. Right, like has that been a struggle for you at all?
Look, that's. It would be if we had an agenda of every time we do an AND session, we want them to behave a certain way and cry. It's not. Our intention is to create the space for humans to be humans, and this is their experience. Because let us not forget two things. A, there's many ways to be vulnerable. But vulnerable for you might be different for me. You want me to cry and open up to them? Maybe that's not vulnerable for me. Maybe vulnerable for me is something else. So we all have our different shades and forms of vulnerability. And the other thing that's worth noting that we don't often pay attention to is the fact that oftentimes when you think of vulnerability, you think of the one who's sharing, who's telling their life experience or sharing something. There's also vulnerability in the listener. You're with your partner. You ask your partner a question. They go, say, vulnerable and sharing experience, but that experience is a reflection of you or of your relationship. There's vulnerability in you listening, taking it in. Let's acknowledge that too.
Yeah, that's not talked about very often. It usually is about why can't you open up? Why can't you share what's going on inside?
Right. And so are we all holding space for each other to be vulnerable by being vulnerable ourselves? So when we do an AND, we don't, I had one time, one of my, I don't direct them all. I have incredible people who also direct and we train and they go direct ANDs and it's incredible. And one time, one of our directors called me up. She said, Topaz, it's not working. They're not crying. They're not crying. It's like they're not really going there. I said, it's not working because you think it should go a certain way. It is what it is. And it's beautiful because there's something to learn from every conversation. We don't all behave the same way. And think about it. Where in life do you really get to see the intimate conversations of others? Maybe your family, maybe. That's it. Maybe a certain friend group. That's it. Now, with this committee, we have a library, the form of the AND, of over 1,200 conversations of raw, honest, vulnerable conversations in many shapes and forms for you to see on YouTube. That's going to inform prospective relationships you have in your own life. If I came to you, Jeremy, I'm like, Jeremy, man, relationships are crazy. They're just so full of jealousy. There's just jealousy everywhere. It's just jealousy is every relationship. You're like, Topaz, that's because you're 50% of all the relationships you're in, and maybe you bring the jealousy. Because check out this
projection is a huge thing. So many people bring. I do it with my daughter, my first daughter. I see so much of myself in her, and I assume whatever she's going through. Oh, I know exactly what she's going through because she's so much like me. And I'll try and dig under the surface, like, it's okay if this hurts, and she just looks at me like, but it doesn't. Like, leave me alone. And it's crazy because I'm like, how does that? If I were you, I would be devastated, but like putting on the stoic face of like, no, everything's cool. And so then I even doubt her when she's like, no, I'm totally cool with this. It's fine. But because I believe that I would handle it differently and I see so much of myself in her, I project all my shit onto her. It's ridiculous.
Wow. When did you realize that? How long? What?
I mean, she's 13, so she has matured a lot in the last few years. But I mean, the minute I saw her, I literally, when I picked her up for the first time and looked at her face, I was like looking in a mirror.
Wow.
And it took a few years to figure out, like, okay, we not only look alike, but like, there's a lot of we're both highly sensitive people. We're both feel things very deeply. And then she got quiet. And I know for me, when I got quiet, that's when I started to shut down. And so I projected onto her shutting down. But I got quiet because my parents split up and there was alcoholism and there was all these problems in the family. She has a stable family with mom and dad that are very much in love and very happy. Like, it's a totally different experience that she has. But I'm coming at it from the perspective of, oh, there's so much pain there that you're just not showing me.
Mm-hmm.
And really, she's like, no, I'm fine because I'm stable and secure.
So here's what's beautiful about humans. We are tailor-made reflections for each other. We reflect our own projections on others, which could be right or wrong. Could not be reality, but we're projecting. But they can be reflections for you, so you have a greater projection of yourself. We are tailored. So what are you reflecting to your wife? What is she reflecting to you? How do we face our others, and what do we share with them so that they can see themselves better? You will never, ever be able to see yourself, Jeremy. I mean, in the mirror, but you'll never, ever have the experience unless you're having out-of-body experience on some psychedelic or near-death experience, right? Which would be awesome. But besides that, you're never going to see yourself. The mirror is the mirror. That itself is not this. But everyone around you, while they can't see themselves, they see you. And the closest way you can see you through their eyes is by having certain moments with them. Now, it doesn't have to be physical. It could be like in silence. But conversation is a gift we humans have. So how do we use it? How do we tap into that? Create the space, ask well-constructed questions. Buy my book. It's in my book.
Buy your book. Exactly. Okay. Well, okay, let's go there because...
No, we don't have to. But just like, that's what we started this year. I'm like, I've done 80 podcasts. And when I started, like, why am I doing so many? I'm doing so many because I'm learning more in the conversation of the podcast about the value of what I take for granted and I find obvious that isn't. And I should share that. That's like one thing I've learned in the last year. So how I change is that, like, for most of my life, what I found obvious, I was like, it's obvious. Why am I talking about it? I'm the narcissist who's going to be talking about the obvious. What a schmuck. So I just kept quiet. Now, at the age of 48, I'm realizing that actually what I find obvious is not necessarily what other people find obvious. And that's where my value is. So share it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was just talking about this on another show about how for most people, the big stuff, they have to hear it like 50 times before it sinks in and they own it and make a change in their life. And so it's been the same for me. I've been talking about this stuff for 7 years or whatever. I mean, and try learning it and practicing it for years before that. And there are times when I'm like, gotta have another conversation about, sleep better, eat better, move your body, like do stuff to take care of yourself. And wow, your mental health will improve. And it just feels like, my God, how many times have I said this? But I know for me, when I heard it in the way that sunk in, I'm sure that person had said it 1,000 times, but I needed to hear it that day in that way for it to matter to me. And it's crazy. Even I was having conversations in the last week with people that, like, things that seemed obvious that I just figured everyone knew and ignored was brand new information to them. And it's mind blowing how much the things that you experience are and become kind of an expert in, other people know nothing about. You're right. That's where your value comes in.
So how do you offer more of yourself? How do you offer more of yourself? Yeah.
Another good question.
Yeah.
All right, Topaz, where do we buy the book and the card game and see the videos and all this stuff? Where do we go?
Well, all of the Skin Deep. Just look up the Skin Deep on any social, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagrams, or primarily at the Skin Deep. And then, the book is available and the games are available everywhere at Amazon. And then the skindeep.com. The skindeep.com is where you can find all of our products and all that and experience his digital products and books and blah, blah, blah.
Awesome. Well, we'll get the link to that in the description for this episode as well. Topaz, thanks so much for your time today, man. I really appreciate it. You've helped me reframe some things about my own life and that's part of why I love doing this, is that occasionally somebody will say something and I'm like, I never saw that. And so thank you for that.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jeremy.
Cool guy, right? Topaz Adizes, founder of The Skin Deep. You can follow them on TikTok and YouTube and all the places. The links for all of that are in the show description for this episode on whatever you're using to listen to this episode. And whatever you're using to listen to this episode, I hope that you will use it to share this with somebody who could benefit from hearing it, or from someone who you think just, might enjoy this conversation. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the show so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. Speaking of upcoming episodes, we'll have more for you at thefitmess.com. We'll be back there with a new episode very soon. Thanks so much for listening.
We know this podcast is amazing and it doesn't seem to lack anything, but we need a legal disclaimer. Prior to implementing anything discussed in this podcast, it is your responsibility to conduct your own research and consult your physician. You should assume that Jeremy and Zach don't know what they're talking about, and they're not liable for any physical or emotional issues that occur directly or indirectly from listening to this podcast.